I swear, politicians will do anything for votes, right? They don't even care. They don't care how much it hurts, the citizens. They couldn't care less as long as it gets them into office. That's the most important thing to them, right? And you can see it in places like California with the whole minimum wage, right? Now, obviously, on the surface, you would think it's a good thing, right? They're increasing the wages of a lot of these fast food workers, but in reality, we all know the consequences of these actions, right? You're gonna get people that's gonna get laid off, businesses are gonna close, the prices of the goods and services are gonna go increase, less revenue, and we know these consequences. But politicians understand that, hey, if it gets them into office, if it can get votes, then that's the most important thing. And so you have this article where Joe Biden is proposing a nationwide rent control, right? Where he wants to cap rents at 5%. Okay, so if I'm a landlord, I can only increase my rents no more than 5%. And of course, and just so you know, this is only for I think it was a corporate landlords where you have 50 or more units. Okay, so if you got less than 50 units, this doesn't affect you. But you know how they do, right? They always start out, they say, all right, 50 or more units, but eventually they'll come down to those that have less than that in the future. It gives them at least the opening to do so. That's just my thoughts, right? But for now, it's only for anyone that has over at least 50 units. And this is the thing, right? When you put in these rent controls, all it does is make things worse. It makes things more expensive. It disincentivizes people to want to invest in these properties because it's like, all right, what about taxes and insurance? Like, those are going to increase. Are there going to be a cap on taxes and insurance? Because we all know that a lot of times the reason why people increase their rents and properties, and whether it's a commercial property or it's a residential, is because of taxes and insurance. But of course, if you're a renter, no one really understands that. They just know that their rent is getting increased. But tax and insurance are always increasing, so therefore, in order to offset the cost, landlords have to increase the rents just so they can make up that cost. And that's the thing. Like, you want to put a cap on rents, but what about caps on tax and insurance? We all know that's not going to happen. So it's just crazy, like, to hear that they're going to like, well, I mean, he wants to implement this. Of course, I doubt that's going to get passed because it has to go through Congress. But just the fact that they would propose this, just obviously to get votes, even though it doesn't work. You look at New York where they have rent control, in California, all you see is the prices of housing going up, increasing. And then you can look at certain places in New York where all you see is a lot of these buildings, a lot of these rental buildings, how it degrades over time. Because if I'm a landlord, right, and you're capping my rents, and tax and insurance are going up, and I'm losing money, there's no incentive for me to want to fix the place if there's issues, like if there's a pipe leak or there's some wear and tear on the building. I'm not going to want to fix it because it's like, what's the point? I'm not making money on this, so I'm just going to let it degrade. And all that does is hurts the people that live there, right? Nothing's getting fixed. Things are getting worse on the building, and this just makes things worse. And then, of course, there's always a supply and demand issue, which makes things more expensive overall. So overall, it just doesn't work. But a lot of these politicians continue to implement these policies. Why? Because it helps them gain votes. They understand that a lot of people, the voters, are going to be like, all right, yeah, housing is unaffordable. So if you can do a rent cap, then I'll support you. And those that really understand economics understand that this is never a good thing. And me personally, I would recommend that he read a book, some economics book, right? One book I would recommend, obviously, is this guy Thomas Sowell, right? It's a good basic economics, just basic. It's nothing crazy. It's just basic economics. Thomas Sowell, he understands what economics is about. I would recommend a lot of these politicians do that. I doubt they will, but that's just my recommendation. So here I got this article in the Wall Street Journal, right? And it's an opinion piece. It says Biden proposes a nationwide rent control. Like I said, it's just an opinion piece, but this guy does a good job of like breaking down obviously all the issues and why this doesn't work. This whole rent control doesn't work. So I'm gonna read this real quick and then let's just go through it. So, all right. So we hope President Biden had merely misspoken during last week's NATO press conference when he mentioned capping rents. Last note, Tuesday, he unveiled a nationwide rent control, another classic White House policy contradiction. Subsidizing housing then discourages its development. Higher mortgage rates and home prices are pushing Americans out of their home buying market. This is contributing to higher demand for rental housing. Rents on average nationwide have risen 30% over the last 4 years, and even more in the Sun Belt states. With fast-growing populations, evictions are also increasing in many markets. Mr. Biden, who on Tuesday pitched conditioning value federal tax breaks on landlords capping rent increases at 5% annually, the White House says its plans would apply to corporate landlords with more than 50 units, covering more than 20 million units on roughly half the country's rental stock. So obviously, like I said, this is obviously for anyone who owns 50 or more units. So if you're someone that owns less, then obviously you don't have to worry. But they always do this, right? They always use these tactics, and this is something that is, I always look at it like this, right? You know how they always talk about how they say, we got to tax the rich, right? Even though rich pay a lot of taxes, but nobody wants to talk about that. But they always say tax the rich, but in reality, they're not really going to tax the rich. What they want to do is they want to make sure everybody understands that, yes, we're going to act like we're going after the rich, we're going to tax them, but in reality, it just opens the door to tax the common folks, the people, the W-2ers, the ones that they can easily get access to. Because if you're a W-2, it's easier to get access to your money than it is to the wealthy people. But in order to get that support, they need to make sure they let you know that we're going after the rich. But in reality, they're coming after you. And then when you get mad again, it just continues. So it's just, I think it's just a gateway to open and to actually probably eventually in the future to go after people that make that have less than 50 units, right? Because whenever they need tax money, they'll go after whoever they can. And of course, for them, the easier ones are to just go after corporate landlords and say we'll go after them because obviously they have more units and they're making more money. So it's easier just to say that they're going after them. But that's just my opinion. So it says, what are such lucrative tax breaks? The press release refers to faster depreciation write-offs under the current tax code. Residential rental property owners can depreciate a building's value over 27 and a half years rather than 39. As for other types of commercial real estate, a shorter depreciation schedule increases the incentive to invest in rental housing. Conditioning this tax benefit on landlords and limiting rent to 5% would do the opposite. It would reduce and could even eliminate the return on rental housing investments, especially since inflation has driven up insurance, construction, and maintenance costs. Investors will have to pay higher taxes or accept a lower return. The administration wants to increase subsidies for affordable housing, even as it promotes policies that make such projects less financially attractive. And that's the thing. Like, if you're going to make it financially unattractive for investors, well, they're not going to invest in these properties. So you're going to have a lot of properties that are just sitting there doing nothing, abandoned, because no one wants to invest in. They're not going to make money. And of course, what's the point of having an abandoned building there when you could put people in there? But that's why it creates a housing shortage, because you're gonna have a lot of buildings that nobody wants to invest in because there's no profit to be made, and then it just sits there abandoned, and then it creates a housing issue. And that's a property where you could put people in there and create more housing for a lot of people. Because government always wants to put their hands in things, makes things more tougher, makes it more difficult to build housing. Obviously creates a supply issue, therefore making things more expensive and for people to have housing. So it's just that just let the free market do its thing, and then let people find a way to efficiently put people in housing. But of course, that never happens. All right, so it says the White House says its rent control ultimatum won't discourage new housing investments because it would apply only to existing units. But developers will rightly anticipate that the policy will eventually be extended to newer units, which will factor into the investment calculus. Reducing the return on completed projects also reduces the capital available to invest in new ones. This is also what the Department of Housing and Urban Development did in March when it capped annual rent increases at 10% for rental units. That benefit went from the low-income housing tax credit. The ceiling was previously set at twice the annual increase in median household income, which would have been 14.8% this year. Tax depreciation schedules are set by the statute, so Congress would have to enact Mr. Biden's new national rent control plan, but the expiration of Trump tax cuts at the end of 2025 will provide him with negotiating leverage if he is reelected with Republican control in one or both chambers of Congress. There is also bipartisan support in Congress for increasing tax subsidies. So yeah, I'm gonna just let that ride. But look, man, we all know that if anyone that understands economics knows that rent controls just don't work. Right? There's an inefficient way to solve a housing crisis, a housing problem, and the fact that you put these caps on rental increases Are you also going to put a cap on taxes and insurance? Because that, we all know that continues to go up, and it's going up for a lot of people that own property. If you're not going to tax those, then what's the point of anyone investing in these properties? Because their costs are just going to continue to go up, and they're going to increase their revenue by 5%. That's just, the math is just not going to work, and it's just not going to incentivize any investor to want to invest in that. So those are my thoughts. Interested to hear your thoughts. Make sure to leave a comment down below, hit the like button, share, and if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe. All right, so guys, take care and have a good one. Later.